But that, I think, is unprecedented in European history, and certainly in the history of the European Union. The instrument to do that has existed for a long time, but it has now been activated in a completely unprecedented move that will allow the EU to purchase and deliver weapons and other military equipment to the Ukraine worth probably $500 million.
And how will it be coordinated, do we understand, with Ukraine? Because, of course, they're not sending, support directly to Ukraine in terms of managing this military exercise.
Well, I think the coordination will be a three-way between the EU, NATO, and Ukraine. And to some extent, I mean, there are several logistical challenges, of course. Among them, probably most important is how to actually move the stuff to Ukraine and to where it is most needed by the Ukrainian military. And one problem here is, to some extent, that Hungary has now said that under no circumstances will it allow its territory and its borders with Ukraine to be used for the transfer of this equipment. So most of it will then most likely have to go through Poland, to some extent Slovakia and Romania, the other neighboring countries that are members of both the EU and NATO. But what we also have to watch, of course, is Russian and potentially Belarusian attempts to cut off supply lines for Ukraine in the west of the country, where so far they haven't made significant military advances. But that is definitely something that will need to be watched quite carefully by the EU and its other allies.
What has been quite groundbreaking is Germany's response, breaking a very long-standing post-World War II pacifist position. How do you view that?
Well, I think that's particularly interesting for me, as you can probably tell by my German accent. Yes. And moreover, I grew up in East Germany, so I also have had the socialization, if you want, in a context that is not too different from present-day Russia. And I have to say that, I mean, the concerns that Germany had in the past, and to some extent still has, they are very valid. I mean, Germany has had, to put it mildly, a very difficult history with Eastern Europe in this extent. But by the same token, I think that implies a responsibility to stand up against the kind of brutal violations of international law and international agreements, and the very obvious crime of aggression that is now being committed by Russia against another European states. I think in that sense, Germany certainly, I think, has gotten the balance right. Also in the sense that it actually really has tried for a long time to give diplomacy a chance. But diplomatic means, I think, now are really exhausted for the moment. So I think this decision in many ways is consistent with Germany's long-standing position to do whatever is possible for international peace and security.
Yes, and of course it just means the threat is just so much more present for Germany. There's discussion now by several nations, EU nations, about fast-tracking Ukraine's membership of the EU, which was really not on the cards necessarily, but more invented by Putin as a major security threat. Do you think that's going to happen quickly?
Well, I think the major security threat that Putin primarily saw was Ukrainian membership in NATO, and I think that still remains very much a distant prospect. Now, with the EU, it's slightly different, but at the same time also more complicated. I mean, Ukraine does not yet have official candidate status. Moves towards that were started last night with President Zelensky signing the official application or the official request for Ukraine to be allowed to join the EU. But now even candidate status needs to be agreed by all 27 EU members. And then once candidate status has agreed, we are then moving to what traditionally always has been very long negotiations on individual chapters where Ukraine has basically align its own regulatory and legal frameworks with those of the EU. So fast tracking in that sense is going to be very difficult. I think the important signal to send now is actually to give Ukraine official candidate status, because that will then set in motion the process for the country to eventually join, which may still be years ahead, even if there is a fast-track process now.
Yeah, but it shows further support. You're talking about growing up in East Germany. Give us the mindset of Putin, because this will further antagonize him. He's also now threatening a potential nuclear option.
Yes, and I think it's all very scary. And I sort of, for several years following events, in particular in Ukraine, but also in Moldova, I really find it very hard to sort of try to get a sense with sort of my own Western liberal logic, rationality, to understand what Putin is doing. I mean, it's very, I mean, it blows obviously a devastating blow to the European security order, to the international order. But I also cannot see how that is actually in the interest of Russia. It does not make Russia more secure. It ostracizes Russia internationally, as we have also seen by the reluctance of China, for example, to openly side with Russia on this. It is really detrimental to Russian development. I mean, the economy is near collapse. The ruble lost about 30% of its value yesterday. So from our perspective, sort of rational actor perspective, it makes no sense what he is doing. And that makes it all the more dangerous, of course, because then it's very difficult to calculate how Putin will respond to one action or another.
Stefan, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.